My fiancé decided to take a break and tour Europe with her college friends, so I called off the wedding. Here's the story. Sarah and I had been together for nearly 5 years and engaged for almost 3. Things were good, or so I thought. We had a wedding planned, everything was booked, and I believed we were on the same page. Apparently, I was wrong. 6 weeks ago, Sarah told me she was going on a trip to Europe with her college friends. It was supposed to be some once-in-a-lifetime trip, or something along those lines. I wasn't upset about it. I mean, I wasn't going to stop her from having a trip with her friends. I even took her to the airport, helped with her bags, kissed her goodbye, and wished her well. That's when she dropped the bomb. The whole "we need to take a break" thing. It wasn't a serious sit-down conversation. Nope. She just casually mentioned it as we were walking to security, like it was nothing. I didn't understand what she meant by a break, but before I could ask, she was already in line, waving me off. At first, I didn't fully process it. I thought maybe it was just a weird comment because she was nervous about the trip. But then I started calling her just to check in. Guess what? She blocked me on everything. No calls, no texts, no nothing. I even checked her social media, thinking maybe she posted something about the trip. Blocked there too. That's when it hit me. The break wasn't just a throwaway line, she really meant it. She'd gone to Europe and completely cut me off without even discussing it. I figured I'd give it a few days. Maybe she'd cool down and realize how unreasonable she was being. But after 5 days of complete silence, I'd had enough. I decided then and there the wedding was off, and you know what? I felt good about it. Why should I stay with someone who could just disappear without a word? I wasn't going to wait around for her to decide when she was ready to be in a relationship again. She made her choice, and I made mine. I canceled everything, the venue, the catering, the flowers, everything. I called it off, and I went even further. She wasn't moving in with me in March like we planned. She could figure out her living situation after her trip, but it wasn't going to be with me. Weeks passed, and I didn't hear a thing from her. Then one day, out of nowhere, she calls me. I didn't even recognize the number at first. She tells me she's coming back Thursday morning, gives me her flight details like I'm supposed to care, and acts like nothing happened, like she didn't ghost me for 6 weeks. I paused, then replied, "What does that have to do with me?" The silence on the other end was deafening. She didn't know how to respond. I didn't give her a chance to explain. I blocked her just like she did to me, and that was that, or so I thought. Later that day, I realized I had to let everyone know what was going on, especially since the wedding was off. We had a group chat with family and friends, so I posted a quick message. Hey, just letting everyone know the wedding is off, and so is our relationship. I didn't expect it to cause such a stir, but it did. People started asking what happened, so I laid it out for them. I explained how Sarah went off to Europe, decided we needed a break without even discussing it, and then blocked me for 6 weeks. Everyone was shocked. Some people were even upset on my behalf, which actually felt nice. It's surprising how people react when you drop news like that, but I appreciated the support. Around 2 p.m., Sarah finally spoke up. She asked me to call her so we could talk. I wasn't having it. I told her we could talk right there in the group chat if she wanted to explain herself. She didn't like that. She said, "This is between us, not for everyone else." I told her she made it public the moment she walked out of my life without a word. She messaged me a few more times, but I kept it brief. I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses. By 6 p.m., she was begging me to pick her up from the airport so we could talk, as if nothing had happened. I told her that was your plan, not mine. None of this was my plan. I wasn't going to go rushing to the airport like a fool after everything she did. Part of me was still hoping for some kind of explanation that would make sense of it all. Maybe I wanted to believe there was a reason, something that would make it all okay. But as the hours passed, I realized there was no reason, no grand apology, no misunderstanding. She made her choice, and I had to live with it. In the following days, I focused on getting my life back on track. I wasn't about to let this break me. I went through our shared accounts, made sure everything was split up, and changed the locks on my apartment. I wasn't going to let her show up unannounced, thinking she could waltz back into my life. I was done. I even started looking into trips of my own. If she could take off to Europe for 6 weeks, maybe I should take some time for myself too. I deserved it after all the crap she put me through. Anyway, that's where things stand. She'll be back soon, but I won't be there waiting for her. She can figure out her way home. As far as I'm concerned, this chapter of my life is over, and I'm moving on to better things. But things didn't stay quiet for long. After I made peace with the wedding being off, I expected Sarah to reach out again. What I didn't expect was how quickly she'd try to play the victim. It started when one of our mutual friends, Emily, messaged me. Emily's great, but she seemed hesitant. Like she didn't want to get caught in the middle. She sent me a screenshot from a group chat I wasn't part of, Sarah talking to her friends and trying to spin the whole situation as if I was the one who overreacted. Can you believe that? She was telling her friends how stressed she was about the wedding and needed space. She even said, "I didn't mean for the break to last that long, but I thought he would understand." And this line really got me. I just needed to figure out if I was ready for marriage, but he canceled everything before I could talk to him. I couldn't believe it. She blocked me for 6 weeks, then tried to act like I didn't give her a chance to talk. That's not how it works. Reading those messages made my blood boil. She was playing the poor me card, telling everyone I was irrational and rushed into canceling everything. At this point, I realized I couldn't let Sarah keep spreading her version of things and making me look like the bad guy. I needed to set the record straight, so I decided to confront it head-on. I jumped into our main group chat, where all our close friends and family had been speculating about what went wrong with the wedding. Everyone was buzzing, trying to figure out what happened, and I figured it was the right time to clear the air. I posted a message that said, "Hey everyone, just so we're all on the same page." Sarah decided we were taking a break without discussing it with me, blocked me for 6 weeks, and now she's trying to play this off like it was a misunderstanding. I canceled the wedding because I wasn't going to sit around waiting for someone who wouldn't even have a simple conversation with me. Right away, people started chiming in, showing their support and expressing how messed up the whole thing was. Sarah stayed quiet in the chat for about an hour, but eventually she jumped in with some weak excuse about how she never meant for things to go this far and how she didn't want to hurt anyone. As expected, she didn't take any real responsibility, just tried to salvage her image. Then Jake, one of my closest friends, stepped in and called her out right then and there. He said, "Sarah, you can't just drop a break on someone, disappear for weeks, and expect everything to be fine when you come back. That's not how relationships work." Honestly, I was relieved someone else said it because I was getting tired of being the only one defending myself. But then things took a turn when Megan, one of Sarah's friends, who I always thought was a bit sketchy, jumped in to back her up. Megan started talking about how Sarah had been under a lot of stress and how the pressure of the wedding was affecting her. She tried to make it sound like Sarah was a victim of anxiety. Sure, planning a wedding is stressful, but that doesn't give you a free pass to block your fiancé and go ghost for 6 weeks while you're partying in Europe. Megan even went on about how I should have given Sarah more time to process things, and that maybe I acted too hastily by canceling everything. That's when I lost it. I wasn't about to sit there and let someone who wasn't even in the relationship lecture me, so I responded to Megan, saying, with all due respect, "You don't know the full story. This isn't about wedding stress. It's about the fact that Sarah cut me off completely, didn't respond to any of my calls or messages during her trip, and didn't even give me a chance to talk things through. How much more time was I supposed to give her? Another 6 weeks? A year? If Sarah didn't want to be with me, she could have told me. Instead, she just disappeared and expected me to wait around. That's not how it works." The chat went silent after that. I think everyone started to realize how messed up everything was. Even Megan didn't have much to say after that. A couple of days later, I thought things might cool down, but nope. Sarah's sister, Rachel, called me. Rachel and I had always gotten along well, so I thought maybe she just wanted to check in. But as soon as I answered, she went straight to, "Why did you cancel the wedding without talking to Sarah first?" I couldn't believe it. I didn't expect Rachel to take Sarah's side, especially after everything I'd told her. I said, "Rachel, your sister blocked me. How was I supposed to talk to her when she completely cut me off?" She didn't have an answer, but she kept pushing, saying Sarah was heartbroken and that I should have waited for her to come back and talk things over. At that point, I had enough. I told Rachel, "Look, I get that you want to defend your sister, but what she did was wrong. She didn't involve me in the whole break situation, and I'm not going to wait around for someone who doesn't respect me. If Sarah wants to explain herself, she knows how to reach me, but I'm not fixing this. Rachel tried to argue more, but I ended the conversation and hung up. I wasn't about to go in circles with everyone Sarah sent my way. That night, I got another message from Sarah. She was apologizing. Well, kind of. She said she was sorry for how things went, but still didn't take responsibility for her actions. It was one of those half-hearted apologies where she tried to make it sound like we were both at fault. I didn't bother replying. There was no point. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with it. I blocked her again everywhere just to make sure there wouldn't be any more drama. In the end, I realized something. I dodged a bullet. If this is how Sarah acted when things got tough, I couldn't imagine how things would have been in marriage. Sure, I felt bad for the time we spent together, but I was glad it ended before it got worse. Now I could move on, and that's exactly what I was going to do. Update 1. So after all the drama with Sarah trying to guilt-trip me into reconsidering the wedding, which didn't work, I thought things might calm down a bit, but nope, life had other plans. About a week after I blocked Sarah for the last time, I get a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer because I was done with all the drama, but for some reason, I picked up. And guess who it was? Sarah's mom. Yeah, her mom. Like, what the hell? Now Lisa, Sarah's mom, had always been one of those people who acted sweet to your face, but you could tell she had a passive-aggressive streak. She'd give you a compliment, but it felt more like an insult. She starts the conversation like everything's normal. Hi, sweetheart, how are you? Like we hadn't just canceled a wedding and cut off her daughter from my life. I wasn't in the mood to play along, so I kept it short. I'm fine, Lisa. What's up? That's when she starts laying it on thick with the guilt trip. Oh, we were so looking forward to the wedding, and this whole thing has really devastated Sarah. You know she's been crying every day since she got back, right? She's just been a mess. I wasn't about to feel bad for Sarah, not after everything she did. So I said, Lisa, I'm sorry Sarah's upset, but she made her own choices. I didn't call off the wedding for no reason. And then Lisa says, well, maybe you overreacted a bit. You know, Sarah was just nervous about the whole thing, and sometimes people make mistakes when they're stressed. Don't you think you should give her a second chance? I couldn't believe it. She was acting like blocking me for 6 weeks and disappearing was just a minor mistake. I wasn't having it. Lisa, I said, this wasn't just nerves. She literally blocked me and went off to Europe without a word. That's not something you just brush off. If Sarah had doubts, she should have talked to me, not shut me out. But Lisa didn't give up. I know it seems bad, but think about all the years you've been together. You've had such a good relationship. Don't you want to try and save it? I'm sure once Sarah explains everything, you'll understand. At that point, I was getting frustrated. Lisa wasn't even listening to me, she was just pushing for me to take Sarah back. I took a deep breath and said, Lisa, with all due respect, Sarah had 6 weeks to reach out, and she didn't. I had already made up my mind, the wedding was off, and there was no changing that. I thought that would be the end of it, but Lisa wasn't done. She called me and suggested, if you're not going to talk to Sarah, at least come over for dinner, and maybe we can sort things out as a family. I couldn't believe it. She acted like this was just some minor disagreement that could be fixed over a meal. I knew this wasn't going to lead anywhere, so I simply replied, thanks for the offer. But I think it's time for everyone to move on, and ended the call. You'd think that would be the last of it, but no, of course not. The next day, Sarah's dad, Tom, messaged me. Tom had always been a bit of an old-school guy who thought he knew everything, and he never really liked me. He had tolerated me for Sarah's sake, but now he wasn't holding back. He laid into me for ending things, saying I was throwing away a good relationship and ruining Sarah's life by not giving her a chance to explain. He even said something like, men don't act like this. You should be standing by your fiancé, not running away at the first sign of trouble. That really rubbed me the wrong way. I'd been there for Sarah for years, and this is how I get treated? I didn't respond to his message because I knew it would only turn into a pointless back and forth. But it didn't stop there. A couple of days later, I get a message from Sarah, using a different number. She sent a long message, filled with apologies and explanations. She said she was sorry, she hadn't meant to hurt me, and that she realized she made a mistake. Apparently, the wedding stressed her out, and she had panicked, blocking me and disappearing without talking things through. Then she dropped the bomb. She still wanted to marry me. After all of this, after blocking me, disappearing for weeks, and trying to blame everything on wedding nerves, she still thought we could just pick up where we left off with an apology. It was as if she believed everything would go back to normal just like that. I stared at the message for a while, torn between anger and sadness. It wasn't how I imagined things ending, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't forgive her. Trust was broken, and no amount of apologies would fix it. I couldn't marry someone who thought it was okay to shut me out when things got tough. So I blocked her number, deleted the message, and for real this time moved on. It felt like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't going to let her or her family guilt trip me anymore. I could finally focus on my future. Update 2. You'd think that after blocking Sarah and her family, things would finally calm down, right? Wrong. They just kept coming at me from every angle, trying to wear me down. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. A few days after Sarah's last attempt, I get a text from one of her bridesmaids, Katie. Now, Katie and I were never close. She was more of Sarah's friend than mine, so I was immediately suspicious when I saw her name. She started off by asking how I was doing and mentioning the breakup. But I wasn't naive. I knew she wasn't just checking in. I kept it short, saying, "Yeah, I'm fine, just taking things one day at a time." Then she hit me with it. "I think you should hear Sarah out." I paused, deciding whether to even respond. Part of me wanted to block her and move on, but I was curious about where this was going, so I asked her why she thought that. Katie went on about how Sarah had been struggling and how she'd been crying every day since getting back from Europe. She said Sarah was too scared to talk to me directly because she thought I wouldn't listen. Apparently, Sarah had confided in her friends that she messed up, but didn't know how to fix it. I was frustrated all over again. "Katie, I've heard all of this before." I gave Sarah plenty of chances to explain herself, but she didn't. She blocked me for weeks, and then thought everything would be fine when she came back. That's not something you just forget. Katie kept pushing, saying Sarah just needed space, and didn't mean to hurt me. But the more she talked, the more I realized what was happening. Sarah had sent Katie to do her bidding, thinking I might listen to someone else. It was like Sarah couldn't even face me anymore. I was done. I told Katie, "Look, I appreciate you trying to help, but this isn't something that can be fixed with a few apologies. It's over, and that's it." She probably wanted to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. I blocked her right after that. Then, just when I thought I was finally done with it all, I get another message. This time, it was from Sarah's cousin Mark, who I hadn't heard from in months. Out of nowhere, he's texting me, asking to meet up and talk things over. At this point, I was so done with everyone trying to drag me back into Sarah's drama that I almost didn't reply, but my curiosity got the best of me, so I agreed to meet him for coffee. When I arrived, Mark was already there, looking nervous. After some awkward small talk, he got to the point. "Look, I know things have been messy with Sarah. I just wanted to check in and see if there's any chance you two could work things out." I couldn't help but laugh a little. "Mark, it's over. There's nothing to work out. She made her choices and I made mine." He looked uncomfortable, like he knew I wasn't going to like what he was about to say next. "Yeah, but Sarah's been saying she made a mistake, and she's been hinting that maybe if you gave it some time, you guys could try again." I put my coffee down, trying to stay calm. "Mark, no offense, but Sarah had her chance. She didn't just make a mistake. She ghosted me for weeks. She cut me off like I didn't exist. That's not something you can just fix." He nodded but clearly wasn't hearing me. "Yeah, but what if she's serious about fixing things? She's been talking about wanting to make it up to you." I shook my head. "Mark, I appreciate you coming here, but it's not going to happen. It's over. I'm moving on." We sat in silence for a moment, both knowing the conversation wasn't going anywhere. Finally, Mark shrugged. "I get it. I just wanted to give it a shot." I finished my coffee, stood up, and said, "Thanks for trying, but it's over. We both need to move on." And with that, I left. I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the last time I heard from them. I thought I had already dealt with everything when I blocked Sarah and her family, but clearly I was wrong. The very next day, I get a message from Sarah's aunt. Now, I barely knew her. We'd exchanged some pleasantries at family events, but that's it. So when I saw her name on my phone, I immediately knew something wasn't right with Sarah's side of the family. She started by mentioning how she had heard about the breakup and wanted to check in on me. At that point, I was fed up, so I just bluntly asked, "Did Sarah ask you to reach out?" She replied, "Not exactly, but she had been struggling and thought she could help mediate between us." I was beyond frustrated and almost threw my phone. "Mediation?" I texted back. "There's nothing to mediate. We're done. How much clearer can I be?" But she didn't back down. She said something about love being worth fighting for, and that I shouldn't throw away a good relationship over a misunderstanding. That's when I realized Sarah must have been telling her family a twisted version of events, painting me as the one overreacting. I didn't bother to respond this time. I blocked her immediately, making it clear there were no more discussions, no more chances, no more being dragged back into that toxic mess. I was done. After that, things finally calmed down. No more messages, no more calls, no more relatives trying to guilt me into taking Sarah back. It felt like a breath of fresh air. For the first time in a while, I felt like I was moving on. No more waiting for apologies that would never come. Just me, focusing on what's next. Fast forward a month after blocking Sarah and her family, and just when I thought it was over, Sarah made one last attempt to win me back. She sent me a letter. Yes, an actual letter, like something out of a bygone era. I almost didn't open it, but the handwriting looked familiar, so I decided to see what she had to say. The letter was pages long. She poured her heart out, apologized for everything, and said she missed me. But here's the real kicker. She told me she still had the key to my apartment, the same key I had completely forgotten about, even though I'd changed the locks weeks ago. I panicked and rushed to check the locks again, but that wasn't all. The letter wasn't just an apology. She was laying out a plan for us to start fresh. She had been talking to her mom about us going to couples counseling, and she even booked appointments without asking me first. The nerve. She thought I'd just go along with her plans without considering my feelings. I was furious. After everything, she was still trying to control the situation, still assuming I'd cave in, so I decided to send her a response. If she wanted to do the old-fashioned letter thing, then so be it. But this time, I was clear. I told her that we were done. No counseling, no second chances, no more discussions. I told her to return the key, even though I had already changed the locks, and that she needed to move on because I already had. I felt a sense of closure after sending the letter, but of course that wasn't the end of it. A week later, I got another letter. This one was shorter, but it still said she understood my decision, though she still wanted to talk. Then she mentioned she'd been driving by my apartment and noticed I wasn't home. That freaked me out. The fact that she was monitoring my whereabouts made my skin crawl. I knew I had to do something drastic to protect my space, so I called my landlord to inquire about adding extra security, possibly cameras. Then came the final straw. My mom called me and said that Sarah had shown up at her house unannounced, asking her to convince me to take her back. My mom, being the strong woman she is, shut Sarah down immediately and told her it was time to respect my decision. At that point, I knew I had to protect myself fully. I filed for a restraining order. I didn't want to, but I felt like I had no choice. After Sarah was served with the paperwork, she finally backed off. No more letters, no more surprise visits, no more stalking. It was over. I didn't want to take it that far, but I had to protect my peace and my family. And you know what? I learned a lot about myself in the process. I learned that setting boundaries is important, even when others don't respect them. I learned that I don't owe anyone endless chances, especially when they've broken my trust. And most importantly, I learned that moving on isn't just about leaving. It's about taking control of your future and protecting your mental and emotional well-being. So yeah, that's it. I'm finally free from the chaos, and I'm moving forward with my life. It wasn't easy, but I made it through, and now I'm just focusing on what's next. No more looking back. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.